Verse 2, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So here I understand a bit different opinion. So the earth was without form and void. So does that mean that there was an earth that God is now just coming and then using to start something, where we believe that God created ex nihilo, in other words, out of nothing, right? So some people interpret this verse like that, as if the earth was there, heavens, everything was there, and all God did was move the chairs around on the deck of the Titanic, kind of idea, right? Put things where in place. Now, yeah, understandably, this is not what the verse is saying. It's not starting off with here explaining that this just came on its own into existence. Matter just existed on its own, and just God came and moved it around. It's just something that God is doing, right? Now, yes, you can't compare this, or in a certain sense you can compare, but in a certain sense you can't, right? So like a painter, when he comes and he wants to come and draw this picture, this painting here, right? He comes, he puts up his easel, and he puts out the paints, and he starts mixing things. Okay, in a certain sense, I see this is what is happening here, but with a big but here is a question that the problem then is that it seems as if God is the one, is just again just pushing matter or material things around. Okay, so because in the painter's case, in that example, is that the things are there, and the painter is just then using what is there, while in God's case, the painter, nothing is there. He's just basically putting out the easel, and as he's going along, he is then making the paint out of nothing, right? That would be more. It's not just mixing the different colors, because then again, he's just using matter as is and just making paint, but making the literal paint as he's going along. Okay, so yes, God creating this, and then he's filling in out of nothing the different things that is going to make on these different days. Okay, so now the other question here is the Spirit of God that's hovering over the face of the waters. Now, some of you might know that the Hebrew word ruah is wind, which is the word for spirit as well. So the same word for spirit, the same word for wind. And so some translate this as not the Spirit of God, but the wind of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Yes, again, in the Old Testament they believe that God is spirit. So it does not really create a problem. God is spirit, the Spirit of God is hovering over the waters, so that is basically just God that's hovering over the waters. So they could have understood it in that way. We, from a New Testament perspective, knowing the Spirit, right? We all again know that this is now this. It can be for us that extra meaning, that final full meaning, right? Can be the Spirit of God. But the first people in Moses' day, when they were reading this, when Moses was dictating this, or however they did it, they would not have understood it per se as now a different part of the Trinity, to put it like that, another person in the Trinity as we today will understand it. This idea as well of the hovering, we will see it in different other places later on, during the flood, etc. How the Spirit is hovering above the waters. So it will repeat itself. Verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Now, amongst Christians, there are different understandings of how creation came into, how God created everything. Okay, understandably, there's the atheistic worldview where matter is eternal, basically. I mean, it has to be, right? If it created itself. We have the theistic evolution, where God used evolution to create everything. My problem with theistic evolution is just the fact that death is like came into being due to sin. So in other words, if evolution happened, evolution is true, then there had to be death, right, before Adam and Eve was born, which would then contradict the whole problem with the repercussions for sin. So I won't hold to that opinion. Then there is, well, the framework opinion as well, framework viewpoint. We will see how on day 1 and day 4 they correlate, day 2, day 5 correlate, day 3, day 6 they correlate with each other, right? All these days they correlate with each other. So it's like on the one day God made the heavens and the waters divided, and then 3 days later the one that correlates with it is putting in the fish in the seas and the birds in the skies, kind of idea. Right, so yeah, that is, but yeah, sure, God could have done it. God has all the power, He's wise as well, so He could have. It would make sense that before you move in, you go and live in a place, you first get somewhere to live, right? It sort of does make sense. You build the house first, right? So so the framework can be true if it fits with the rest of the creation. Okay, now so yeah, the idea of a day. So since the moon and the sun and the moon was created only on day 4, people will say, but how could the day exist then? How could they know there's a day, day 1, day 2, day 3? How could those days be? How could they come into being? How could they call it a day if the sun is not there? Because we count time by the sun. Okay, people living way up in the north or way down in the south. If you're in Antarctica, you're way up in the north of Siberia or Canada. There's times in the year where you don't see the sun at all. So how do you count a day? We count the day without they always seeing the sun. There are people living in areas where for months they don't see the sun, but they still count the day. We have watches, right? So yeah, the fact that the sun was only made, sun and the moon only on the 4th day does not then therefore imply that the one who made it could not already delimit what the day will be like and when it starts and when it stops. So for myself, I hold to I'm a young earth creationist. In other words, I believe that God created everything in real 6 days. When it says today, 24-hour days. Now here I'm going to immediately admit to the fact that there are certain things that I understand from the scientific point of view, because I love science as well, that sort of doesn't fit. Which at the moment we don't really understand how, we can't really explain it. And I said in the beginning as well already, there's certain things that we don't understand. So light travels at a certain speed, right? And stars there are stars that we know about that's a lot further than 6,000 light years from here. So how is that possible if the Earth was created only 6,000 years ago? Okay, so carbon dating, all of those things, I know all the different theories and the proofs and the disproofs, but as far as I can see, logically, what follows from here is that it has to be 24-hour periods, real 24-hour periods. Jesus saw that as real 24-hour periods. Throughout the studies I will get back to as well, that idea of how Jesus would have seen and looked at this, right? And so yes, there are certain things that I can't explain at the moment, certain scientific reasons, certain scientific things that I just can't explain. And I'm admitted, right? But at the same time, I want to just say here one very important thing. The problem with science at the moment especially is that science is so much driven by opinion. Now, scientists will disagree here, but the fact of the matter is certain things just gets money to there's more money in it to try and find on a certain fields of science. There's more money available. And where there are more money, it will attract more brains, people going to work, more scientists will work there because there is a job, right? There's money to be made here. We all need to eat. We all need to. So at the moment, if you hold to certain theories, like that God created everything 6,000 years, then you're seen as a lunatic kind of idea, right? You're just not way up there. You can't have any brain cells up there. It's just impossible. It's like as if you believe the earth is flat. Now, where I'm standing, I can sort of see that the earth is not flat. Right? You can sort of see it goes down on that side kind of idea. Except if the earth ends just there and it all falls down, but I've been there, I know it doesn't fall down there. Right? So we know the earth. So they say it's like, you believe in young earth creationists and you are like someone who believes the earth is flat. That's so stupid. Right? So ultimately, because of that opinion, if you say evolution is not true, it's only a theory. But if you don't believe in that theory, then people laugh at you. You can lose your job. People do lose their jobs. So people are not studying this. It's dangerous to do it. It's dangerous to stand up for the truth or for something else. So ultimately, I just think here, it's one of the reasons why we don't have answers to all the questions, because there's not enough money available to go and study it. Because people are made fun of when they do study it. And the big loser here is not Christians. The big loser in a sense is even not the Bible. The big loser here is just plain simple science itself. Because there's a big field in science that we are not looking at. Because of our preconceived, our own viewpoints on our worldview of what is right and what is wrong. So until we change that, until we open our minds, our brains to look at other possibilities, we are not going to be able to see those other possibilities. We're not going to put effort into trying to find answers. So yes, at the moment I know there are answers available that certain scientists put out for how the Earth can be, how light can come here, etc. I understand all of this, but I'm not fully satisfied yet with this. But notwithstanding, I believe that God created everything in 6 real 24-hour days. Yes, so you get militant scientists who say just that religion and science have nothing to do with each other, the two will never meet. But the problem, and I fully understand here that you get theologians or Christians who say the exact same thing, that religion is all, Christianity is all that's true, and science is just a lot of nonsense kind of idea. If you think like that, yeah, sure, there's no place to meet, there's not in between. But for scientists, just want to say that the fact that God exists actually makes science possible. If matter existed, we wouldn't have matter had to be eternal, then we would not have had this anyhow. But the fact that God is who He is, right, I think that would be putting it better. The fact that God is not like the Greek pantheon of gods, not like the Nordic gods, not Thor or whatever, right? Or all the Egyptian gods, the Mesopotamian gods, all those lots of gods, right, out there. I mean, just imagine if God was like that. Okay, so if there were lots of gods and they were fighting each other, like in all these pantheon of gods, they're always fighting each other. Right, you get the marble gods, they're fighting each other. Now, what if, for example, today one of the lesser gods defeat the other god? Okay, say Loki defeats Thor or something like that. So what then happens? So then Loki will say, no, you know what, I sort of like it if gravitation, if things didn't fall down, but that gravitation worked in the other direction. So let's just tomorrow everything falls up. I mean, science would not be possible, okay? Because the god who is winning is going to have his say in how things work, and the other gods will just have to submit to it. Yes, sure, the god might say, okay, let's just stick it with it as is, but still, what if there's another one of them who's saying, I don't know about this, I want something different here, kind of, right? So what do you end up with? You end up with a system where science can't exist. Okay, the other thing as well, like I said in the beginning, for theologians to treat the Bible and each other with humility, scientists need to treat, we need to treat them, and they need to treat us as well with humility, because we know for a fact that science do change. They might try to say, no, it doesn't change, but it does change, right? We don't believe that there's only 4 elements anymore. Okay, we don't believe the Earth is flat anymore. Okay, we don't believe the Earth is the center of the universe anymore. Okay, there are certain things. The atom is not just one thing, but you know there's protons, neutrons, electrons, and there's quarks and antiquarks. We all understand those things. It's as our knowledge grew, as we looked at it, we found nuances. Now the problem, just as I mentioned earlier, is that science is losing out when we close the door on a certain direction of knowledge. So because there's something that we could have found there that might help us here, but now we say that's just too stupid, we can't use it at all, and we might never then find what is missing here. Okay. So yeah, that is just a point I want to as well make. Praise God for the fact that He is one, that He is not changing, because if He was changing, we could not again do science. So God makes science possible.